In today's video, I will be comparing Deepwoken and Type Soul in every category from PvP to PvE to combat style. Make sure to subscribe since only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. And now let's get into it. First of all, let's compare their pairing because a lot of people actually don't understand the way parrying works in Type Soul and why it can be seen as inconsistent. I recently explained it briefly in my last video, but I wanted to explain it in a bit more detail about how it works here. So basically, in Deepwoken to parry, you need to press F before something hits you. So right before an attack is about to make contact with you is when you press F, and you will always get a parry. However, in Type Soul, in order to parry, you need to press F during the wind-up of your opponent's move. An easy way to understand this is with basic M1 swings. If you press F as the swing is about to hit you, then it'll miss and you'll either get hit or be forced to block it. However, if you press F during the wind-up when they bring their weapon and arm back, then you will parry the hit. This means that while Deepwoken parrying is mostly reaction-based depending on the move, Type Soul parrying is actually mostly prediction-based, and you really have to work on predicting what your opponent is going to do if you want to parry multi-hits and other hard-to-read moves. Of course, that doesn't mean every move is prediction-based. There are reaction-based parry moves that you should be parrying off reaction or muscle memory, like Grand Ray Sero, and the normal Sero and Sero Oscuris. And most ranged moves with charge-ups are reactable and easy to parry. However, most of the moves have either late or fast hitboxes, meaning a lot of it is very prediction-based. A good example of this is the slash partial res move Byakko. Byakko is the move that you see only Hakuda users using because every slash user runs Hakuda. Byakko is the move that runs at you and then grabs you and slams you down. But that hitbox is so far in front of someone, it's really unpredictable, making it hard to parry. So you can really only consistently block it, because you can't dodge it because it'll just keep running at you, and you can't consistently parry it because of the way that it works. Another difference are the two games' combat styles. For those of you who don't know, the main three are true stun, so think GPO, block roots, and peroxide. It's easy, takes minimal skill, and landing a hit will pretty much let you land any other hit until you've gone through your entire hotbar. Which is why these games usually give you less moves, like how peroxide only lets you equip X amount of moves at a time. Second is mini stun. Think Rogue Lineage. Combos are possible, but escaping combos if you're skilled is also possible, and usually if you're trying to get out, you won't get hit more than twice per string. And the final is non-stun, which both Type Soul and Deepwoken combat is non-stun styled combat. This means that getting hit is generally the punishment for getting hit once, and you can almost always dodge, block, or parry to escape after you've been hit one time. Deepwoken is very consistent with this, however Type Soul really isn't. While Type Soul at its core is non-stun combat, many moves will pretty much cause stuns. A good example of this is Sero's Scourge from the Keto Tree. After getting hit by it and it slams you down, it stuns you for a bit, so you can actually get comboed after someone hits you with it. So while the game is non-stun, it has some moves that are outliers in the game's combat and change the way its functions work. Another good example of this is the Warden crit. The first hit punishes you, the second hit pulls you in and does more damage, which is guaranteed. Now, this is technically more closely resemblant to mini stun, and the reason for that is because it doesn't exactly put you in a combo if you get pulled in by Warden. A lot of the time you will end up in a combo if you get pulled in by Warden, but generally you can escape if you dodge or parry properly. Now on to the progression. Overall, the progression is very different from both games because, you know, one's based on Bleach and one is original, but I want to compare their base progressions. For Type Soul, this means Fishbone Hollow to Elite Grade, since this is going to be an Arrancar POV, since I am an Arrancar and I've only ever played Arrancar in depth and gotten everything on. And for Deepwoken, it'll be a Power 20 build. So Arrancar progression is a mixture of both PvE and PvP as it is now. As a Fishbone, you pretty much just ask a high-level player to kill a Menos for you and eat it, or alternatively, you just wait at the Bawa Bawa worm boss and eat that after it's been killed to reach Menos. As a Menos, you need to go down to the Menos forest and kill 5 or something like that other Menos NPCs. In that point, you become an Ajuchus. Once you're an Ajuchus, you either Mask Grip and become an Adjikar or Rankar, or you get 25 Mask Cracks from killing other Ajuchus NPCs, and then you have 4 Elite Grade friends gank other white Ajuchus with you to get Vasto. I say that because realistically, you're never going to be able to 1v1 another white Vasto. Most players who are using Vasto are going to be with someone else, which is why they're so confident in progressing it, because they have help. From grades 5 to 3, you pretty much just do missions with the quest board. As a Vastacar, you start at grade 3, and you can go on to killing Soul Reapers and Quincy's as well as doing quests, and you do this for about 1 to 3 hours, depending on if you have friends helping you to get elite grade, and then you will eventually have to get your partial res at some time in between that after you've reached grade 2. You also, of course, choose your Sero path, which you could choose whatever you want that benefits your build. In Deepwoken, you spawn in and immediately go to Arisia and farm Sharkos until about power 10-ish. After that, you can go on to killing golems, and then you go to Hive until about power 15 or max level-ish, and both games have secondary progressions. And then after Deepwoken, and if you want to count it, after you've gotten to max level or you're around level 15, you could probably start farming Duke. But after that, there are a lot of secondary progressions, but we will cover that in a second. For Type Soul, the secondary progressions would be True Vasto, Resurrectione, or Resurrection, which I will be calling it, and Segunda Etapa. And their equivalents for the other factions, which would be Letzt, True Letzt, or Let's Still, Volsterndich, Visored, True Visored, and Bankai, and I guess Shrift and Shikai. Deepwoken instead has harder oaths to obtain, enchanted gear, gear looting for stats, your murmurs, better weapons, Shrine of Order min-maxing in your progression, and just a whole lot of other customization type stuff. Overall, Type Soul is much more linear with these things because in Type Soul there's only like one way to do everything and you just get boosted through that route if you want to do it faster. In Deepwoken you can choose between PvP or PvE for progression if you want to go something like a Void Walker, and then for PvE you could just go traditional, or if you want to torture yourself you could do like the Depths progression with your really unfun spawning path. But it's still kinda linear. It's just PvE or PvP, but in a different way. I do much prefer Type Soul's progression only because it's faster and because the addition of blue pills makes it so changing your build isn't hard unless you want to switch factions, which means you don't need to progress an entirely new build every time you want to try something new, which is very nice, because progression in both games is honestly unbearable and the only fun parts are endgame when you can actually fight people. Both games are honestly equally boring to progress, but Type Soul's progression is more avoidable because of blue pills, and Type Soul's progression is just generally faster and more easy, so boosting people in it makes it even more bearable. Overall, this point goes to Type Soul for making me do less progression and I can experience more easily. Versus in Deepwoken, where if I want to try something new, I have to either wipe my build or buy a new slot or use another slot that I have empty, and then I have to go through another 4-hour progression. And boosting in Deepwoken doesn't really work. Like, you can't boost someone in Deepwoken, really, because you're just going to be fighting NPCs, and it just doesn't work. There's no real way to progress exponentially faster in Deepwoken. In Type Soul, get 4 guys, have them kill people, they bring you the kills. In Deepwoken, you kind of just have to do everything as you would normally, and just try and do it faster. So this point is definitely going to Type Soul, because the progression is less needed with stuff like blue pills and red pills and everything that helps you do that faster, and it's just way easier. Next, let's talk about PvE. Overall, Deepwoken has more in terms of PvE than Type Soul. Type Soul has like 6 enemies excluding bosses, except the Bankai fights are, you know, meant to be entire server-wide events, but all the bosses are pretty much meant to be fought by like 20 people at a time. You got the copy and pasted humanoid NPC, Soul Reaper or Arankar enemies, the Fishbone Hollows, the Ajuchas Hollows, the Menoses, and the weird tiny Fishbone Hollows, and they all have like 1 or maybe 2 moves. Deepwoken has Sharkos, Mecha Sharkos, Alpha Black Sharkos, Red Sharkos, Enchanted Sharkos, Ice Sharko. No, I'm joking. Deepwoken actually has really good variety in its PvE and mobs, even though you don't have to fight most of them, sadly. There are lots of mobs. You have owls, threshers, the bigger thresher, very unique, Sharkos, the new Mud Skipper fusion monsters, Stone Knights, Snow Knights, and even more. And the bosses in Deepwoken are realistically possible in a 1v1 situation. You can beat any boss in Deepwoken one-on-one, and the bosses don't feel unfair in a way that the 1v1 with Type Soul bosses would feel. PvE easily goes to Deepwoken for its variety and much more, like, possible boss fights. Because in Type Soul, everything is either, if it's in a 1v1, you'll 2-shot it because you're too strong and the NPCs are stupid weak, or you'll get 2-shot because the bosses are meant to be fought by 20 people at a time unless you're doing your Bankai. And even then, there's no way most of the Bankai fights are supposed to be fought by one person because they are ridiculously strong. Next, I want to talk about some of the more aesthetic things like quality of life and the GUIs and stuff like that. In Type Soul, the UIs, first of all, are just kinda ugly. Not all of them, but specifically the inventory and skills UI and the overlays which show like your legendary clan and weapon information are, in my opinion, all horrible. They're also very glitchy because a lot of time I'll get like loading errors where I can't switch out my inventory or equip items and stuff like that. And if it is letting me switch things in my inventory around, it doesn't matter because I literally can't reach the last 2 slots in my inventory in the clothing section because it won't let me scroll all the way down. Like, literally. Also, my Shinigami Asura pants just unequip themselves. I don't know how. I don't know how, and I didn't even know, because there's no real way you can know you have vanity hidden items equipped. If Type Soul had a UI or something that showed your additional armor stats and what you have equipped on vanity versus what you're using the stats of, it would be really convenient. Because what if the best gear I have isn't even being used? Deepwoken has all of these. They have their little campfire menus, and it'll show you exactly what you're wearing and what stat buffs you're getting and your total stat buffs. And if Type Soul had that in some way, it would be really, really, really good. One point does go to Type Soul though, because apparently Deepwoken's low graphics mode doesn't really do anything. I wouldn't know because I have a $9,000 setup that I'm recording this at right now, but apparently I've heard Deepwoken's performance doesn't get any better in performance mode from a lot of people. While the Type Soul one seems to work as it is supposed to, improving FPS, and even if I use it, I can at least see the difference, and it's like, oh yeah, those textures, they're gone. This is gonna be super lag free. But, you know, I wouldn't know because, you know, I'm recording this video at my $9,000 setup in my completely soundproofed office room with my floor to ceiling windows with my $5,000 a month HOA fee in the place that I own. Sorry. But in the end, it's really a matter of preference. I prefer Type Soul for the satisfying combos and because I'm good at it. Many people prefer Deepwoken for the PvE, even though we all know it needs more PvE content. And many more enjoy both for different reasons and will play both games as long as they're both getting updated. Type Soul may not be the Deepwoken killer that Deepwoken itself will always be. However, Type Soul is a fun experience once you've gotten through it enough, and I personally love it and I enjoy this game dearly. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, make sure to subscribe. I hope you all have a great day. I love you, and goodbye. And if you think I sound weird in this video, well, I do sound weird because I'm actually extremely sick, and I really hate being sick. So please, send me your prayers in the comments so I can recover from this deathly illness called the common cold that affects me like once every 2 years because I have a very strong immune system. I'm rambling. I'm actually yapping right now. Hope you all enjoyed. I love you all, and goodbye.